This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, Pop Experience. Welcome back to another episode of Pop Goes Degrassi, where tonight we are finishing Season 2 with this two-parter of the season finale, Tears Are Not Enough. But before we deep dive into our season finale, let me introduce my co-host here, Mr. John Kesselika. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Grooney, and what better way to start a season finale? It's been a long season 2, one where we've introduced some new characters, we've given more play to some of our background characters, and what I think is gonna be great tonight is seeing, really for the first time in a while, that we get everybody coming together, and I'm excited to get into Tears Are Not Enough, and especially with a man who was with us when we first met, Craig Manning, earlier this year. He's here with us, right?
Yes, he is, and he co-hosts the, I want to say, the south of the Canadian border teen drama show, Beverly Hills 90210. So that is Mr. Tim Capel. Tim, how are you doing tonight?
Yes, very good, gentlemen. Thank you for having me back. A promise kept, bookending this season. So I was here for your opener, where we met Craig Manning, and here for the finale, where tears are indeed not enough, you guys. So thank you. It's always a joy to join you on this kind of companion or sister podcast to what JT and I do on 90210. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Yes, and Tim, last time, me and John, we covered How Soon Is Now, where Paige decided to press charges against Dean, and really it's the reveal that Marco comes out to Ellie. So that storyline is still open, and it doesn't really come until season 4. So it's like they take a break in season 3, and we know that Paige and Dean's relationship thing is still ongoing.
Yeah, so I guess both of those subplots kind of in transitional states. Marco struggling with his sexuality, just in time for Pride Month, I guess. But he's still got at least one foot in the closet here, if not both feet, with the door cracked. Ellie's onto something, at least. I know that they tried dating for a little while, and that obviously just wasn't working. So, yeah, which is an important milestone in their just overall friendship, obviously. For these really 2 new characters to this season, the way that they paired the 2 of them up worked out pretty well, I'd say, for this show's long-term future. And yeah, Paige pressing charges against Dean. Certainly, we have not heard the end of that. Obviously, there was the incident, the assault that occurred earlier in the season, and she's now decided to pursue it, but we won't get really any closure on that for a little while still. And now we're rounding the corner here with Craig and his ongoing family drama.
Yeah, one thing we saw last week with the Dean episode is, we already had our ill will towards Dean. He was a pretty bad guy. Definitely a bad guy of sexual assaulter. But it just got ramped up as he became this mustache twirling villain. In his evilness towards Paige and even towards everyone in general. And I think we see a bit of that here, and we'll get into it in the episode, because I struggled at first in watching this, where I was like, Craig's dad seems to be. He's saying good things. You can see him putting an effort, and he just eventually, just before everything, really twists it again. And you're like, yep, all right, we got to move on. So I don't know, the Degrassi writers still struggling with maybe like a bit of a nuance to their trying to insert a bit of nuance into their evil characters. But no, Craig's dad, like, you can take it away, Grooney. I think really, comes back and to me surprised us for a little bit to start at least.
Yeah, it almost felt like, hey, we have these, we have like one storyline we need to like close up here. It don't, like, again, I don't want to always go back to wrestling, but it was like, who ran over Stone Cold? And we have to close up. We have to close up that storyline. And it's like, well, what are we going to do with Craig's dad? Are we going to keep him around, or is he gone? It's like, oh, let's close it up with a twist here.
Yeah.
You wonder if it's a pacing issue a little bit too, where this season is longer than their first season. You get 22 episodes compared to what I think it was 13 that first season. Mm-hmm. And while the show does get heavier this season and dealing with maybe more sophisticated storylines, and I'd say overall it is more serialized, there was still some filler, throughout this season that kind of could have been better served, I think, to some ongoing storylines so that some of these developments don't feel quite so abrupt, but it is what it is. I think that'll get better over time because this will really be the norm for a while structurally.
Now, Tim, you're not talking about you wouldn't be referencing a floor hockey rivalry or faking being Jamaican in ceremony, would you? Like, would those happen to be like in that category of filler for you?
Yeah, I think I could have maybe done without. But at the same time, if we get rid of the infamous jerk chicken controversy, then Hazel really is left without any meaningful character development for the whole series. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Kind of the only real episode she gets, right? But
yep.
Gosh, I forget how early on that really was. But poor Hazel. So,
yeah. And
that was
really,
a one and done and one and dud, I would say. For sure.
It was a dud, yeah.
Misfire.
So season 2 really started off with, like we said, the introduction of Craig and Craig being abused at home. Then we get to Ashley trying to redeem herself, but that goes nowhere as her friends still hated her and she went with the goth look. Then we have that one episode. Then it's like we go with, Joey trying to be Mr. Cool Fun Dad, and then Craig steals his car. And, Joey's like, no, I really have to ground you and put my foot down to really, Then we get into the whole wedding and pregnancy saga of Mr. Simpson and Emma's mom, Spike. So Spike and Snake get married. Then we have the Liberty dictatorship of the floor hockey and Hazel pretending to be Jamaican when she's really Somalian.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
a lot going through this season, but again, looking back on it now, I really felt great about season 2 as a whole. I think this took what we saw in season 1 and pushed what maybe the ideas of what this show could be in its ability to handle so many different characters at once. Not letting them get lost at their ability to kind of balance different levels of storylines, whether it's for grade 8, grade 9 students to, give different mature themes where they needed to play out, and also give that like time to just be kids that we see. And, something that a lot of these shows run into hasn't really affected us yet, as the parents are still essentially around. It helps that one of them is a teacher, so is always going to be present, like in the school. But that like they've done a good job of keeping all the balls in the air, I guess.
Yeah, yes, they have.
I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. All right, gentlemen, we are going to deep dive into our 2 episodes here. We're going to start off with Tears Are Not Enough, Part 1. This aired actually in the U.S. in August 29th, 2003. So late to the game here in America, as it was, I believe, actually in April, that April of 03 is when the Canadian timeline had aired this episode too. So late drafts going into the airings here.
Got to be able to edit out any challenging content that Americans might find offensive that we see in Canada. You know, Dr. Sally might really go over the top, or some weird references to poutine that need to be kind of trimmed, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Craig is talking with Ashley about his upcoming science final exam when Craig's dad appears. So we see Albert for the first time ever since Craig left his father's house to move in with Joey. When I first saw this episode, I was like, oh, it's a shocker. It's like, wait, his dad's back. Like, that's Albert, like what we saw the last time of him being like this abusive dad. Now he's here, like almost at the end of the season here. Were you guys shocked when you saw him again?
The first time I watched this, I kind of had a feeling he would be showing back up at some point, but I think it had been long enough that I'd sort of forgotten about him, in all honesty. But it was definitely an open-ended storyline. It needed some closure, and it does make sense, as I said, to bookend this season with Craig's just parental drama. I guess honestly, you could have called this episode "My Two Dads." Really, abandoned our '80s pop music theme, but that's really what this is about here. Is Craig's struggle and being torn between two worlds. And this is not helped by the fact that Albert is acting like really nothing has happened between them, that they aren't. It's like he didn't get the memo that, no, really, we're estranged. Like, there's a pretty big reason I'm living with Joey. And he's sort of glossing it over, right? And just stepping back into his son's life at a pretty hectic and stressful time. We're talking about exams. I guess finals are looming over these students, and that's a big deal when you're in high school. So you sort of wonder if that timing was a little bit calculated on Albert's part. But anyway,
yeah, I'm with Tim. I think there's been so little reference to Craig's father throughout this season, save the one time when he puts on the glasses in the acting exercise and kind of channels his father's rage there in a bit of a moment. But we've really established Craig's dynamic at his new home with Joey. And one thing that really, I discounted and neglected the entire time was that they are still in the same city. We see this later when Craig's encounters her friends or his coworkers who say, "Oh, here you're at boarding school," and yeah, this is that they have not crossed paths in these essentially 9 months, right, for a school year,
right?
Is kind of jarring at first.
Mm-hmm. So,
it's not like Albert moved away, right? He still has the same house that Craig was living in.
Yeah. Same house and same job. He works at the hospital here in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Craig is shocked to see him. Albert introduces himself to Ashley and Sean, but Sean spits on the ground because he's not buying the act, basically. After and you can't blame Sean after seeing Craig with the train tracks and seeing what happened, what Albert did to Craig. Sean is not going to buy this guy's act at all.
No, Sean's in his traditional defiant stance here, and hey, standing up for his friend. Not wanting him to make any rash decisions and, rush back to something that he hopes might be different. He even says immediately after, like, hey, you're not gonna like actually see him again or meet up with him. And Ashley, this is her first introduction. I guess Craig has not necessarily mentioned to her anything about his complicated relationship with his father.
No, not at all. It was just like Emma knew, Joey and Sean knew, really.
Yeah. Right. And this is where I think I talked about before, Craig as a character who sort of walks between different social circles, and gradually over time that will sort of shift where he's more associated with, I'd say, the older kids than the younger crowd here. But we haven't forgotten yet at this point his friendship with Sean, who was a big part of that season premiere, introducing Craig and his, his terrible home life, and has really had his back. So I'm glad that he's still here, even though he is going to kind of be in the background. And I guess I wondered when that started, when they sort of began phasing Sean out of Craig's life and his circle. And I feel like it might really start here. I don't know that we'll see a whole lot of the two of them after this. And meanwhile, you've got Ashley, who has been around this season in the picture. So kind of an interesting trio here of Craig, Ashley, and Sean. And then Ashley and Sean are meeting Craig's dad here. It's just an odd choice of characters. It's not like Spinner and Jimmy and the other, friends that Craig has made throughout the season who are getting this info dump for the first time or making this introduction. It's I don't know. It's a weird choice of characters here. But that will change as things go on. So yeah, we're pretty much back on, and Craig is confused, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, what were you think, Tim, Jake Gurney? Creepy move to approach Craig at school instead of trying to go through other channels, like maybe reaching out to Joey or attempting to see him at home first. Like,
no, because he knew that. Yeah, he knew Joey would not let him go near Craig here as well. Like, I think Joey was too smart. He's like, if I'm going to see Craig, I got to do it without anybody knowing. And this was the best possible way to do that.
Yeah, that's an ambush for sure.
Mm-hmm. Albert asks if Craig wants to ride home, but Craig declines. But Albert asks Craig to think about having dinner with him tomorrow night. Sean asks if Craig is going to go, and Craig is just left staring and thinking that, hey, my dad's back all of a sudden. Joey is running around with Angie, who spills juice over Craig's notes, and Craig gets really bad. Joey asks Craig to help out with cleaning, but Craig says he is studying with Sean. So we see what kind of home life Joey has as he's juggling his daughter Angie and his, I don't know, it's his stepson, Craig, and where Craig needs peace and quiet, and Angie is not helping matters by being sick and just spilling stuff over Craig's notes.
Yeah, we'll get the chance to give Joey a lot of praise, I think, but there are scenes like this that pop up throughout that show kind of like, I don't know, he seems a bit still disconnected, ill-prepared in this way. Like, he was still going to need to, get Angie ready for school. He still was going to need the house to be clean. These are things that he is neglecting to do. And you can kind of empathize with Craig here, as he might, this is something to be confronted with immediately after being presented with, a potential reunion that he's, what he's been already seeing as a proper and like happy home life is, just piling on to the stress he's already feeling with exams.
Yeah, I will say that this scene at Joey's did a good job of making me feel stressed out. Like, as soon as that drink spills all over the kitchen table and the notes, I'm like, get it up, clean it quick. And I'm thinking, like, did any electronic devices get compromised or anything? Like, it did a really good job of, like, that sudden oh shit of the chaos of this environment and this, busy weekday morning. So while Craig's domestic situation, all things considered, all things being relative, have improved dramatically. Point being, Joey is still a bit in over his head, right? It's one thing, he's equipped to take care of Angie, his daughter, as a single parent, but he wasn't exactly prepared to take on a whole ass teenage boy, right? Who is fully formed and hasn't played a huge part in his life up to this point. So he's doing his best. He's having a bad day, it looks like, getting the day off to a bad start anyway. Yeah. And it's just letting you know, like, this transition, while it's for the best, it hasn't been easy on either of them. So yeah, that
chaos is played brilliantly. Just with the second Angie starts crying or shouting, yes, it doesn't stop. Like, they're having a discussion with her still going in the background the entire time, and you can just just feel that
tension.
Disorder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Hatsalakos is going over science notes, and Craig is feeling the stress of the exam. Ashley gets Craig to talk about his dad and how yesterday was the first time he saw his dad in months. Like you said, it might be 9 months because it really felt like, the school year was beginning when we saw Craig and his dad the last time. Ashley says people can change. JT is struggling with a practice test in Miss Kwan's class while Liberty finishes early. JT approaches Liberty, who knows JT wants her help. Liberty wants JT as a date to the dance, and JT reluctantly agrees. So we see the stress that Craig is bringing upon himself, but here we have Ashley, who actually got Craig to open up about his dad, but not really reveal the truth, but like sort of did. And Ashley's like, well, people can change. And now we have Liberty getting what she wants because she knows that JT cannot pass this, what I'm going to say is an English exam. As we know, Ms. Kwan is the English professor here, or geography, I don't even know. But so we know that if JT wants a passing grade, Liberty wants a date to the dance. John, what did you think of all these segments here?
Good on horny Liberty, always just like angling for the love of JT. She is relentless, and is using the power she has of her skills in geography to be able to finally coax him into a real date. And happy to see that. And Ashley, that Ashley is the character promoting the idea of people can change. It feels like she's the one who's kind of earned that the most, through these 2 seasons so far of, having to cope with people's attitudes changing towards her, or her own kind of like demeanor changing, and being able to win some of those relationships back. This is, she's seen people change for the better and change for the worse, but been able to still kind of grow and thrive through that. So she's giving us some angle of hope and a reason for Craig to, finally accept that invitation from his father, or even like consider it at least.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do have to wonder if, like you said, the delay in these episodes airing in the United States, if one of those points of controversy would have been Ashley going goth, just like the youngest son on Home Improvement, that great scandal of the 90s. It's maybe too hot to have a popular character such as Ashley, top of the social order in her grade, go goth like this. Very, very, very edgy. So that was, her storyline throughout this season. But I, similar to you, I really do applaud Liberty with this leverage play here. She knows not to give up the goods to JT without getting something in return here. He wants the answers, and she wants JT. So that was something that, it does get a little annoying, tedious, this crush that she has on JT. It's, it's an unrequited crush for a long time, we'll just say. But something I do like about this show is how open she is about it. Like, she just openly pines for him from pretty much day one. It's no secret. She's she's really shooting her shot with him, and he doesn't want to give her the time of day, but she's like, oh no, I'm going to make you mine. And I don't know, it seems refreshing compared to the way these, just puppy dog love stories are usually played, where it's, you would think she would be oh so forlorn and couldn't tell him, and then she does, and it gets rejected. But no, she's been open about it from the start. So that is one of the things I do admire the writing of this show for doing.
Yeah, Tim, I think if you would, parallel to your own expertise in the field of 90210, I liken it a bit to Andrea and Brandon with that almost one-sided relationship. Only at this point, in the early seasons, Brandon at least was kind and giving some consideration back to Andrea, not immediately shutting her down at every step of the way, like JT is here.
Yes.
So you're right. They play a little differently, but I feel like that same dynamic is there.
Yeah, but it's
a
really
little bit
good,
more evolved. A little bit more evolved on 90210. Not by much, mind you, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's really good on Liberty that that she really played this out. She was like, well, he needs a passing grade, I need a date, and I know where I'm going to get one here. The last time we saw Liberty was her dictatorship role with the floor hockey team, really. So yeah, we'll see where this one goes to as we get back to Craig. Craig goes to his dad's hospital and says yes to dinner. He runs into his dad's coworker who asks Craig how boarding school is. Craig plays along, and the coworker says that's the first time Craig's dad Albert has smiled in a while. And then we're at the restaurant, or they're eating dinner, and Craig wants to know why Albert said Craig was at boarding school. Albert says he couldn't really tell people the truth, that I abused my kid and stuff, but Craig Craig just agrees that it's okay, well, I guess you had to say something. Albert says Craig leaving was a wake-up call, and Albert went to anger management and says he is better. Craig says things are hectic at Joey's, and Albert says, if you need anything, call me, because school is important to Albert for Craig.
Yeah, this dinner, and that conversation with the coworker placing Craig at boarding school, and with Craig being kind of confronted with the lies his father is telling, is the real first chink we see in the armor of what his father is portraying here. One of those first steps in any addiction or social behavior recovery is a level of ownership and admitting of having a problem and having that power. And if he's not able to do this comfortably, it's something that will fester. And Craig's right to be cautious in that, although he is kind of accepting of the understanding of, oh, well, I don't want to hurt your reputation, and you wouldn't want to hurt your reputation. But at the same time, that's, again, the abuser being protective of himself and not thinking of the harm he's done to others. So definitely a warning sign for Craig right here.
Yeah, red flag for sure. And we're not really inclined to want to side with Albert or even give him the benefit of the doubt here. He does explain it away as, this is a colleague, this is a work acquaintance. I had to tell her something, right? And so can we accept that as an excuse? Maybe. He then goes on to say he's been in counseling, which, if true, and he does acknowledge the abuse here in the scene at dinner. So he's not glossing over this after all, or trying to gaslight Craig, it seems, at least at this point. So it's like, okay, if he's really doing this stuff, these are the things that we say an abuser should do. Like, if there is truly a path to redemption, then if he's on the level here, then maybe he is doing the right things. So it's a slippery slope, right? We're not quite at the point where we can trust him again, but we're seeing some steps made towards progress, maybe, where the door is opening a little bit, at least in Craig's mind. But again, you do have to question the timing of it all, right? So still some lingering questions here, but Albert is sort of saying the right things, doing the right things, and we'll just have to feel out his intentions as we go here.
But also, those disclosures to his coworkers, you'd imagine, could have played out differently. I don't know if it's that he feels he needs to cover because Craig used to come visit the hospital a lot and they would see him a lot. So they're wondering why he's not there. But that, doesn't need to be he's at boarding school. It could be he's busy with school.
It does make it seem like he made an effort to disappear him from his life altogether. So,
I would, if I was in Craig's shoes, I'd be like, he's got to tell them, he has to tell them something that, like, did you really think that your dad was going to tell them the truth? It's like, I'm a bad father. No, like, of course he's going to say, oh, he's at boarding school. And, I'm just waiting for him to get back.
Missed opportunity from the writers to drop a random Canadian boarding school name in here. I love when we get the different cities and everything mentioned. So I really, really wish they could have at least done that for us.
The band for boys or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. With
imagine,
Sega. He's often with Sega.
Yes.
Imagine if early on they said, "Oh, Craig's at an alternative school program at Lakehurst."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wow, yeah, there you go.
All the bad kids go there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Troubled children. Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Early. Yeah. Exactly.
So Craig goes back to Joey's house, and Joey's like, Craig, where were you? You're supposed to come home. Like, Angie has the flu because, like, Angie was at, like, a dance practice, and, like, she threw up, and then she comes home, and it turns out she does have the flu. So things are running hectic here, and Craig is not doing what Joey asked him to do. They get into a little argument, but then Craig ends up just being like, all right, I'll clean up and everything.
So this is really great. Sorry, this was the moment I was thinking of earlier, where Joey is now, you can see, really leaning on Craig, because this is somebody he didn't have there again, like as recent as 9 months ago, and Angie still would have gotten sick. Angie still would have thrown up. He still would have needed to clean the house. These are things he's neglecting to do at this point, and instead relying on a 15, 16-year-old kid to do, and shows kind of that maybe the give and take's it would definitely seem a bit out of whack. At least to me it does, and maybe Craig is feeling that as well, especially now with his father maybe back in his life a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we really got into the whole dynamic of, like, Joey going over, like, house rules and being a father. It's like, yeah, you grounded him one time, Joey. Good on you for actually being the responsible one. But again, we haven't really, with so many storylines going on, we really haven't seen the whole like Joey and Craig dynamic here. And again, it's going forward, like, I don't know if it's next season or season 4, but Joey then like goes off the deep end a little bit and asks like Craig to hit him up for money with with his spoiler, his dad's will and stuff too, and like inheritance.
Yeah, I guess we are just seeing pretty much the early days of this relationship and how it works, where it's almost like Craig is viewed as an equal contributor, at least to, I don't know, the home economics, if not the finances. And John, to your point, yes, Angie would have gotten sick anyway. Dishes still have to get done regardless. So, yeah, this is definitely Joey leaning on Craig a little bit here in ways that maybe you wouldn't expect so much from Albert, who is really putting a lot of emphasis on his studies and wanting him to focus all his energies on doing well on his finals. So we're getting this contrast here, and Craig being torn between these two worlds, or two dads, as it were.
Yep. So it's the next day, and Craig goes over to Albert's house, and he knocks on the door and asks if he can study there, and he goes inside. And even Albert, I think, is a little bit surprised, like, oh man, wow, you actually you came over, and that's wonderful. Like, I'm glad you did come over. So Craig comes in, and then they're starting to talk a little bit, and Craig puts his orange juice down on the table. Albert says, use a coaster. And Craig immediately has a flashback. Well, not like a flashback, but like a sense that, oh my God, he's going to hit me again. And even Albert's like, it's all right, Craig, just be more careful without hitting Craig here. But Craig again gets scared. And then JT is complaining to Toby about having to go to the dance with Liberty. Toby reminds him she is helping JT with studying. JT still wants to ask Paige to the dance, and Toby says he has no chance. So what did you think of the scene where Albert and Craig were at Albert's house, Tim?
Reminder of what a short fuse Albert had and how unpredictable his anger could be. Very explosive, and really an indication that Craig is still traumatized and more than likely has some PTSD over these experiences, right? And, Albert, he does not react in the way that Craig is used to or expects, but in its own way, he's a little bit dismissive at the same time. Like, he doesn't even realize, or he's purposely avoiding even confronting the trauma that he's inflicted on his son. So that's pretty uncomfortable. Meanwhile, hey, JT, you know what's worse than going to the prom, or the dance, I should say, with Liberty, is being Toby and not going to the dance with anyone at all because you're Toby. So it's quite some nerve to be complaining to his bigger loser friend who doesn't have a date about how shitty his date is, right? Like, come on,
Tim. I think Tim, if you come on here and want to rag on Toby, I'm all with you. But I think Grooney,
and I don't even mean to. It's just the truth. It's just the truth.
Grooney, our number one Toby defender, would be the first to point out, hey.
Oh my God! It was one episode.
Somebody's got to have his back. I mean,
Jesus. I mean, that's like David running to Scott, and Scott. David's definitely JT.
Scott in this scenario. But,
yes, he is.
I think with Craig's dad, you can see real signs of him trying to practice this anger management. We don't need it overtly with him, like, going through a countdown in his head or anything like that, but just his approach of explaining the reasoning for the coaster and everything is much more measured and effectively sounds like somebody who is kind of coping with and learning to control those responses. But to your point, Tim, I think, it would have been nice for him to acknowledge, hey, I recognize that in the past I might have, responded differently, and I want you to feel safe here. Just some level of assurance, because Craig is still clearly still traumatized, and it gives us what the directors seem to love, giving Craig Manning, why am I blanking on the name? Daniel Epstein chances to just Jake Epstein, giving Jake Epstein chances to just stare.
Yes, he does that very vacant blank stare pretty well.
They love to give us a chance at that. Yeah.
Yep. So Liberty then comes over, and the JT and Liberty, they start reviewing European capitals. So I'm guessing Miss Kwan is like the poetry and the geography teacher. This is so weird because, like, we've known Miss Kwan as like the poetry teacher here, but now it's like Liberty is studying European capitals with JT, and that's like history and geography. It's like, what do our teachers really teach here,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I had any teachers who pulled double duty as English and, like you said, social studies or geography, and I'm like, not really. But again, different country, so it's not out of the question. And I also do wonder, this is JT we're talking about, he may need some help in multiple classes here.
Yes, he's gonna need a lot of help.
Yeah, and Liberty is going to be pretty much killing it in those same classes. So, might as well double up.
He's doing a decent job with his European capitals on these flashcards, picking up Albania and everything. Although, I will say, if you have a sharp eye, the last one she holds up, he says, I have no idea. If we see the back of her card, it starts MAD. So that could only be Madrid, Spain. So if JT is having trouble remembering the capital of Spain, maybe he is in a bit of trouble here.
Yep, and then Liberty says what type of dress she should wear. Like she asked JT, what type of dress should I wear for this dance? And JT goes, Liberty, it's a luau, so it's a Hawaiian themed luau. And Liberty's like, well, I just want to look good for you. So yeah, Liberty really trying to swing for the fences here.
It's swinging for the fences, but it's also it's a nice glimpse into her character and something that we don't see that much of. It's really, she genuinely wants JT to be happy. That's her reasoning for asking this. She's like, oh, I want you to like this. I want you to have a good time. She's really putting him first, even though, obviously she does want this date for herself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Craig is ready to take his science exam with the 9th graders, while JT and the 8th graders are taking their geography exam. JT and Liberty look at each other. Meanwhile, Craig and Ashley look at each other. JT then tries to ask out Paige to the dance, and Liberty is right behind her. JT then, pulls a switch, and he goes, actually, can you help Liberty with her outfit, please, Paige? And, of course, Paige is like, hon, I got you from here. And so Paige is going to be giving Liberty a makeover, and JT saves himself from a sticky situation here.
Mm-hmm. Quick thinking there, although very devious his intentions. But gives us another, what I'm always fond of, rare interaction between characters, which is Paige and Liberty. I think they've said all 2 words to each other prior to this, and it's not going to really change as the series progresses. So I always like those little exchanges.
I like those. I like the kind of shift in Paige, who would have been completely dismissive of any of these characters coming up and talking to her before, and here she is in better spirits, is kind of even humoring and chatting with JT at first, and then even like happy to help somebody else out in helping Liberty. So it's it's a nice moment for Paige. Paige doesn't get many of these, so good for her.
Yeah.
Craig and Ashley,
the willingness to help someone lower on the social order is pretty uncharacteristic of Paige as we've come to know her in these early days, but she is growing for sure over the course of this season, and the terrible things that happened to her. But there's a different character that's going to emerge in her over time.
Also got reference that it was Heather Sinclair's idea for the luau. So shout out Heather Sinclair.
All right. Yep.
Craig and Ashley are celebrating the end of the science exam, and Craig pulls the trigger and asks Ashley to the dance. Ashley agrees to go. Albert pulls up and asks how the exam went and that he wants to take Craig out to dinner again to celebrate. So again, Albert is trying to put on the nice act here and reward Craig for how confident he was with the exam here. And then we see Craig, he's babysitting Angie when Joey calls and says he will be running late because he has to finish up a sale. And Craig's a little bit worried because he's afraid that his dad will get mad at him.
Yeah, and he's not being honest with Joey about where he's going. So that obviously, I mean, probably wouldn't be allowed to go, but so Joey's not going to be having the same sense of urgency to get home. And hey, obviously we're really seeing those first glimpses of how important Joey's job and the finances are kind of tight with the family. He really needs to get this sale done. I think that's important. With the Craig's dad showing up in the parking lot, the first thing I noticed in watching this back is they staged that car so early that he's just kind of lingering, waiting behind them. It looks like he's prepping to run them over or something.
It's gonna be a hit and run.
Yeah, before he pulls up, and yes, a bit of a double edge here, because this is where we start to really introduce some of the coldness of his father. It felt, I don't know, it's tough to say uncharacteristic because we don't know much about him, and what we do know is that he's a pretty bad guy, that he would, from meeting Ashley the other day to today, all of a sudden he's kind of looking at her side-eyed as she's an interesting girl, he says to Craig after he leaves. So already starting to, dim the lights on Mr. Manning a little bit here. Dr. Manning, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. At the same time, it does seem like this whole scheme, for lack of a better term, has paid off, because Albert did provide Craig with a more, shall we say, hospitable environment for his studies, and it seems to have paid off. Craig is feeling like he killed it on the exam, and he's sort of feeling grateful now for Albert, right, and his role in that. And grateful versus indebted, it's a fine line to walk, but he does genuinely seem to want to take this dinner, right? And this would normally, Joey having to work late at the car dealership normally wouldn't be an issue. You get the sense that this kind of happens on a regular basis, but here it's more of a complication. And Craig sure isn't going to let on the real reason why this puts him in a precarious position.
Yeah, and the whole, Craig being like, Joey, you got to come home, man. I have plans and stuff. That's really Craig's feelings of, if I'm late, my dad might beat me.
Yeah,
that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, no, that trauma still lingers. And so you can see it in his race to get across there. I think we get in our next scenes.
Yep.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a panic, right? not just an urgency, but maybe a panic in his reaction.
Mm-hmm. Albert is waiting at the restaurant, and Craig rushes over. Albert hands Craig an envelope with tickets to London and plans a whole European adventure. Albert tells Craig it's time for him to come home. Craig says he likes it at Joey's, but Albert says it's unstable over there. But Craig says that he feels safe over there and that it is stable. And, at your house, it wasn't stable. Albert then walks away. Albert then starts to put Craig down as Craig is chasing after him by saying Craig will fail without him. Craig shoves his dad in. Albert smacks him. Albert then says sorry, and it will not happen again. But then Craig says it's over. Like, don't bother calling me. Don't touch me. Don't do anything. And then Albert then just drives off. So yeah, Albert's true colors finally comes out when he doesn't get his way, and that Craig wants to stay at Joey's house.
Yeah, the real bottoming out for him, and the real hurtful line that shows he hasn't changed comes from when when Craig says that's what you always say about it'll never happen again, and his only response is not like I mean it this time or anything to those ends, but it's you always screw up because you always screw up. He puts it back on Craig, and you can see right there that that's a hurdle he still has not cleared, and this is going to be a situation that will repeat itself. And him driving off, I completely forgot he drives off angrily like that. I almost thought he just kind of, in my memory, more passively drove away, like kind of saying goodbye. But yeah, we can see how this might set up some of the tragedy that is shortly to follow.
Right. And although we do see Albert's true colors here, and it's not unexpected, this turn that the episode takes, I don't know, just from a storytelling and narrative standpoint, I kind of question the decision to do this, because up until this point, it's been kind of shades of gray, right? Mm-hmm. We're not really sure how to take him, where there's been questionable behavior, but maybe he truly is on the road to rehabilitation, or has made steps in progress towards that end. I think that would maybe accentuate the next big thing that happens, we'll just say, a little bit more than if we just went back to, well, he's an asshole again, fuck him, right? Yeah. It's sort of, I mean, not to say that Craig wouldn't be equally conflicted over what happens, but I don't know. I think there's maybe a better story to be told, and just leaving that lingering question out there of, did this guy really change? And having that unanswered is almost a bigger tragedy than, well, what happens to this guy is sort of, you reap what you sow.
Just
live by the
deserves,
sword, die by the sword.
Yeah, it's sort of what I was hinting to earlier, that just before this is going to happen to him, they make sure no, you really shouldn't like this guy. Because even when Craig's getting to the dinner, when Craig's getting there late, when Craig is so out of sorts and everything, he doesn't take that time to chastise him. He doesn't take that time to critique Joey or anything. Instead, what he does first is offer a gesture, and say hey, it's okay. Let's continue the positive we've been going. And it's when repeatedly confronted with that pushback that he's finally kind of letting down. If maybe I agree with you, Tim. I think if they had left it at, his dad just continuing saying these kind of needling things instead of acting physically on it, it might make this land with a bit even more weight.
Yeah.
I think it would have been interesting to do that if they like you said, like, oh well, let's not have him hit Craig. Let's have him
Right.
like, okay, you want to go back to Joey's? That's fine. Why don't we like just see about this? Like, you know, why don't I go back with you or something? Or like the next day, Albert comes by and like, you know, they all talk and Craig tells Joey the truth and everything, and this is how it's going to go down. But before he goes, you know, the cops come and they tell Craig like what happens or something.
Exactly. Like, yeah, they could have just stopped short of Albert actually hitting him, right?
Yeah.
Not that his behavior is excusable. I mean, he says some very inappropriate, let's say, things from a father.
Well, I don't think you needed I don't know if you needed the yelling part either. I feel like there could have been a better way.
It does get verbally abusive, which, you know, is not nothing. But if they had just dialed it back that much, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it just, maybe this is me trying to be too ambiguous for this type of show, or too artistic or whatever. But it just seems like leaving that question of, well, maybe this wouldn't be the worst idea. It is very abrupt, and Craig is being pressured to move back into an environment that may not be safe for him. But at the same time, maybe this guy really has changed, and maybe it is going to be better this time. And then that all just gets yanked away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I know this is a show that it goes big. It plays to the cheap seats. So they're going to, and they know they have a young audience, so especially in these early days. So they're erring on the side of telling us how to feel rather than leaving it up to interpretation.
Right.
So I get it. There's a part of me that's like, there's a different way you could have played this that, in my mind, would have been more effective. But I'm not a Canadian television writer.
Craig then goes back to Joey's house, and Joey asks, like, where have you been? Like, what happened? And Craig comes clean. Craig tells Joey that he saw his dad and he got into a fight with his dad. Craig tells Joey that they are going to Children's Aid so he never has to see his dad again. The next morning, Craig and Joey are going over the plan to go into Children's Aid and tell their story on what Craig has been through with his dad. When the police show up, Joey then tells Craig that his dad was in an accident and he didn't make it. And that's how we leave part one of this 2-part episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. With some more like Craig staring to close this out.
Yep.
I'm, you know, as an aside, I'm forever disappointed when the police show up and we don't get a Mountie as part of the contingent. But, you know, yeah, some growth here for Craig and Joey and their relationship, actually, which has been kind of fractious the rest of this episode, to them being, you know, immediately like on the same page. You know, Joey even racing to his defense, looking to call the police right away, which probably would have been the best play because you would want to report that abuse immediately. But, you know, cooler heads prevailing, waiting until morning. And yeah, a gut punch for the audience, a gut punch for Craig, no doubt, that, you know, the person he right now hates so much is now gone.
Yeah, because we don't see like any justice to Craig, because like he doesn't get to see his dad get arrested, even if he was, or like he, you know, his dad's not alive to like see all these reports of that. Hey, you've been beating your child and everything. Like it's almost like he escapes this by crashing his car and dying, and now, you know, all the pressure, like all the feelings are on Craig, because now it's like, well, it's like either I'm happy he's gone because he can't be me again, or I'm sad because now I don't like really get anything out of this because he's gone.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great way of putting it. This specter that's been hanging over Craig is now no more. He does not have to ever worry about how his father is going to react to anything he does ever again, or being hurt by his father again in any way. But at the same time, he now has all this restless energy, right? And where do you put that? Honestly, maybe this is me not knowing Joey as a character all that well, having not really watched the OG Degrassi, but I don't know, man. When this kid comes home bleeding, I mean, he's bleeding from the cheek and tells you that he just saw his father basically again for the first time since they split up, and more or less immediately got into an altercation with him to the point that, his dad drew blood. And this is all just coming out now, and I'm Joey, and I just got home from a stressful day at work. I'm a little bit surprised he doesn't storm out and go fuck up Albert himself. Maybe he's just not really that tough guy type of character, but I mean, it seemed like it would take some restraint on his part not to immediately fly off at the handle with maybe some anger issues of his own, but directed towards a different source. Because that's a lot to process all at once. Hey, I saw my dad and he hit me again and I'm bleeding, right? That's pretty much the extent of what Joey is hearing, not the whole, back and forth that this is, they've had a few visits, I guess, throughout this week, but just having to take all that in at once and for him to say, okay, we're going to put a stop to this the right way and go through the proper channels. I would say it's what you're supposed to do. You shouldn't get a cookie for the thing that you're supposed to do, but that is admirable on his part. This is Joey we're talking about, right? So
yeah, Joey never seemed like the one to throw down, and I haven't watched enough of the original series, like the junior high and high school, to know if Joey has actually gotten to a fight or not. But Joey's the peace and love kind of person. Even if he doesn't go and fight for you, he'll still be that crying shoulder for you. And he is that crying shoulder for Craig here. And when, Craig opens up to him about I'm being beat by my dad, you got to help me.
Yeah. More of a lover than a fighter, certainly.
Yeah, well, let's wrap this up here as we are going to go into Tears Are Not Enough Part 2 now. So, again, the fallout from Craig's dad passing away here. We start off with Mr. Simpson as he informs the ninth graders. I almost call them eighth graders because that's how we were introduced to them as the eighth graders. So it's the older kids who are now ninth graders that Craig's dad passed away. Ashley is collecting for flowers and stuff. And, Craig, Mr. Simpson says that Craig has been excused for the rest of the year. So there's only got to be maybe 4 days left, maybe. But Craig comes into class even though he's excused, and he's like, well, I want to finish out the year. And it's like, well, how much is there to do since the exams are done, really?
Yeah, at this point, after exams, our teachers are showing us movies or something. I think I watched, Lean on Me or Stand and Deliver how many times in math classes after the exams were finished. Yeah.
After high school exams, it was that's when summer, your last final, your high school final was the start of summer, because it's if I don't have exams today, it's the last day of school and I don't have to go. So I'm going to start my summer vacation 1 day early.
Yeah. I question good old gossipy Mr. Simpson here feeling the need to announce this to the class.
I mean, yeah, this is a little personal. Maybe let's.
No, because I'll tell you, Well, so the big thing, like a lot of things like got out too. That like, I mean, like you said, it's like this is a little too personal. One time they announced like to our fifth grade class that our friend's mom passed away of cancer, and that was sad. And then the next year in the sixth grade, our like not my science teacher, but like the one of the sixth grade science teachers, because like we had like three science teachers like for three different like parts of the grade. Her husband and daughter got killed in a drunk driving accident, and they announced that to us, which was like sad too. So not awkward to announce these things. Like it's like, okay, like, you know, what can we do to help? Yeah.
I would hope that they had the blessing of the family.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Springing it on the rest of the school. I don't know. But
it kickoff media immersion classes.
I mean, right, really, yeah. Of all things, this is media immersion class. Does it really have to? Like, are these announcements being made at all by all of Craig's teachers through all of his classes? It's a little weird. So,
yeah.
Plus, it's the end of the school year. Like, really, we can't just let this ride. Look, Craig's going to be gone for the 2 days that are left in the semester, right? Big deal.
Can we not trust his close friends who probably already know this to be able to share?
Who already know? Yeah, exactly.
Like Does Sully need to know that Craig's dad died?
Exactly.
Oh my God. Sully shows up. He makes the announcement about the luau. So we get.
Does Heather Sinclair need to know? Like, I mean,
oh my gosh, yeah. Or Joey Zambone or whatever Toby says, like, you know, some random name that put like a get well card to Jimmy. Like, it's like, who are you? So that, like, you know, the class is looking all worried, like Ashley, Paige, and like Terry and all of them. Paige gives Ashley her donation money. Mr. Radich is offering his condolences to Craig, and Terry tells Ashley to like leave him be because like Terry knows what it's like to lose a parent, and everyone grieves in their own way. Craig still wants to go to the dance, so a lot of different angles here. Here we have Mr. Radich. He's offering his condolences, and we definitely have input from Terry here because Ashley's like, I want to do something. I don't know what to do. What are your thoughts on these scenes here, Tim?
Well, I think that this second episode here, this follow-up, is largely about the fallout and how people manage grief in different ways, and how that grief is at least attempted to be managed by other people in our lives, right? So things are taking a little bit of a slower pace here, but you know, we're emphasizing the different relationships, the friendships that Craig has, and there's sort of an unlikely, you know, source of wisdom here, and Ashley, Terry, who hasn't been particularly close to Craig, but she does have the experience of losing a parent. Now, I would imagine her relationship with her mom was not nearly as complicated as Craig's with his dad, but that is something that none of these other kids can really relate to, right? As far as we know. I'm trying to think if any other parents died at this point. No. Show, especially Craig's friends. I know Sean is estranged from his biological parents, but that's kind of different. So yeah, it's like nobody really knows what to say, and it's kind of making the point in a subtle, understated way that maybe the best thing to say is nothing at all. At least take your cues from the person who is grieving, right? So
yeah.
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but that's what we're
from that. Especially, Tim, that none of these people have are close enough friends to have any real knowledge of the family dynamic, which is another reason why like introducing it by Mr. Simpson feels like insensitive. You know what? If anything, he probably knows from Joey of that complicated relationship. And, this only opens up like more conversation around that for Craig having to maybe even confront that and introduce it to other friends or strangers in that case. I think 100% agree with you. Take your cues from the person. And while Craig is, I think doing what a lot of us might do in this point of trying to, continue with life and avoid that grieving point. The fact is, as he'll confront later, like that life does go on, but we need to make space for it as well.
Yeah, you would think that this would have ended up in like the newspaper, because like, again, it's like doctor and medical personnel, Albert Manning dies like in a car accident. Certainly a paper would have picked this up and the kids would have read it and be like, oh, that's Craig's dad. Especially Sean or Ashley, who have met Craig's dad. Yeah, so
there probably would be a degree of publicity around this. I'm sure it would be publicized. But yeah, I agree that Simpson would be very likely to know the history here, if not from Joey, as in like, hey, why is your stepson suddenly living with you? He may have heard it from Emma, right?
Yeah.
So, that is sort of. It does sort of accentuate how weird it is for him to be breaking the news to the class like that, but whatever.
So Craig still wants to go to the dance, and Paige then informs Hazel that her and Spinner are going to win the Luau King and Queen. And Miss Hatzilakos is in the science class with the ninth graders saying Craig got an A on his science exam. Marco is in the back with Jimmy saying Craig is like holding up really well with his dad's death, while Marco and everyone else seems like very much upset. Craig then tells the guys a wild story about being in the accident with his dad, and the car was like flipping over, and Craig only walked out with a scratch while his dad died. And then like Marco and Jimmy are looking at each other like, Craig, you weren't in the car though. And he's like, oh, I was just kidding. I was just kidding about that. So like they're freaking out and like being like, what's wrong with him? John, your take on this?
Hey, one, good to see Craig getting a good grade. And as he even points out, like a last good thing that his dad did for him, he feels. So he's already starting to kind of see that kind of conflict that he's having with his feelings over his father's passing. And I don't know, I think just kind of typical or like characteristic manic behavior here of overplaying and over accentuating those positive emotions and even like joking around inappropriately, with your friends is something that can be expected. Marco and Jimmy's kind of confusion at it is relatable as well. But, we can really see like why, hey, it probably like an adult probably should have stepped in here and said, no, you actually cannot go to school right now, and you need to be at home. And the principal had that authority to do that.
Yeah, part of me wonders if that was sort of the understanding, and it was, okay, I'll stay home, and he kind of just showed up anyway. Mm-hmm. He did seem to walk into class pretty abruptly, unexpectedly, and what do you do at that point? Are you just going to send him home? Like, once he's there in a sense. Like, if Simpson wasn't like, oh, no, you aren't allowed to be here, then maybe it's a little bit hard to enforce.
You do. I mean, from an educator standpoint, Tim, you do still have a responsibility to create a space
sure.
for the rest of the class as well. That is free there, So
yeah.
I don't know. Radich, we'll see. We'll get to see later in this episode Radich's amazing hands-off approach to principling.
Well, this is Degrassi Junior High or high, whatever it is we're talking about. So, yeah, and I think part of this too, the whole, I was in the car with him, it rolled, but I escaped with only a scratch, is sort of like Craig's way of coping with the fact that he just didn't get any real closure, and again, where to direct that energy. He's so frustrated over this situation, but he's trying to just play it off, act like everything is normal, go through his usual paces, but in his mind, he feels like there should be a better story here, right? There should be a more, I don't know, cinematic ending to this whole conflict that I've experienced, and he's kind of making it up as he goes along, and he comes up with this very grandiose lie, just off the cuff, right? Not even realizing we know that's not true. Like we know the story. You literally weren't there. Why are you telling us this? And it's like, oh yeah, well, don't worry about it. Right? I'm just having fun.
It's almost like he doesn't really have any answers for how he's feeling, or for the complications within that, or for how this relationship with his father resolved. So he's continually writing new ones in his own until he can settle on something, and that's what he's essentially doing here with Jimmy and Marco. Of like, hey, what if it was that I was there?
Yeah,
and, I feel grateful to have actually survived.
Trying to rewrite the ending to the story. Yeah.
I kind of also think that it's like, I walked away with a scratch, and it's like, well, if my dad stayed alive, I could have gotten, I might have gotten more hits into me, because like again, Craig only does walk away with a scratch when his dad hits him, and it's like, well, imagine if he was still alive, he might still be beating me up, Mm-hmm. So I guess in a way, it's like I only did walk away with a scratch. Is that, well, he didn't finish me off, and he didn't beat me up and punch me in the face and stuff too. He only just smacked me one time. So yeah, I feel like that was like a cry for help, kind of. Like this is what really was happening, and I didn't tell you guys. All right, so Jimmy and Marco are walking down the hallway, and they see Spinner, and Jimmy starts trash talking the Spinner, saying that I'm gonna win the king queen of the luau with my date, and then Jimmy throws down the line of, he might steal it if I win, So Jimmy's still holding a grudge that Spinner tried to sell his $500 MP3 player here. And then Jimmy then goes to Hazel and says, you're going to be my date, and they can still win king and queen of the luau. But then Hazel's like, well, I don't know if Paige will like that. And it's like, forget Paige. Do what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, good to see that Spinner Jimmy dynamic still lingering, that, Jimmy is cautious around Spinner. I know they've since reconciled, but, he's still holding over him that idea that he stole from him in the past. And I think this whole scene and this whole subplot is a nice indicator of that idea that life does still go on while people are grieving. So while these guys are still have their own priorities, their own concerns, as silly as they may be, of winning the luau king and queen as ninth graders, when up against those tough 10th and 11th graders. No mention of the 12th graders here for some reason.
Right.
Exactly.
They're off at senior prom. They don't. They don't have to be at this luau because they're on a cruise. They're on a cruise ship to prom.
Gotcha. The consolation luau. Yes.
Yeah.
For the underclassmen.
Gosh,
yeah,
well,
life
like
does.
ninth grade, I think was ninth grade was a dance, and then 10th grade you had the class like we had the class ring ceremony where we got our class ring, and then we had a dance afterwards. Like so, that was all right. But then it's like junior and seniors had prom, so it's like okay,
Right. Yeah. So yeah, this is an indication that life goes on as stated. And I don't know, we're getting early Jimmy Hazel feelings, although Jimmy makes it seem like this is just to give Paige and Spinner some competition, right? So yeah, I kind of like this as a B storyline, even though Craig is consumed with all these tragic events. His friends aren't necessarily, again, taking their cues from him. He doesn't seem overly pressed about it, so they're just going about their business as usual here.
Mm-hmm. So then Toby and Kendra put Jimmy and Hazel on the list of nominees for King and Queen of the Luau. Paige and Spinner walk in. So, like, just like all this drama of who's going to be king and queen. Joey then drives Craig to Albert's house. Craig goes upstairs to his dad's house, and he goes into his dad's room, and like he hears his dad's voice and everything. I thought they were going to go to another flashback of what it was like being in Albert's house with like the first two episodes of him breaking his camera and kicking him. That's where I thought they were going with that.
Yeah, banging on the door with the golf club and such, like, that kind of, that real trauma resurfacing. But, instead, like, just, kind of trying to find some sense of closure in all of this as they prepare for the funeral and actually saying goodbye.
Yeah. What did you think, Tim? Do you think they should have went back to a scene from the first two episodes?
Not necessarily, because I think we're coming into this with the understanding that the viewers know that Albert was a bad, abusive guy. And we don't necessarily need to see that again visually. So it's more about Craig being in this environment again and not reflecting on the bad memories so much as trying to find the good and, whatever's left of, this very broken relationship that he had with his father, and just being left with nothing. Like it's more emphasizing the absence than anything particularly good or bad or in one direction or another. It's just the loss here. And again, he's looking for answers and not getting anything. So I do wonder what happens to the house in this situation. Like, is it paid off? I assume it's being sold, but like, do we get into like who is like the executor of Albert's estate or any of that? Since Greg is a minor, right? Like,
yeah,
no, but it's like again,
I'm not saying we had to get into it. It's just a little bit like, I mean,
it lingers, and we feel like that's going to be something that, they leave it open ended so that it can come in a later time. I honestly thought, having watched this show before, that enters into the picture here in this episode, but it does not. No.
Right. That's sort of where I was going with it. Like, is that going to have some kind of implications later on, But
I remember clearly that it doesn't. Like, it's not like he inherits the house like Dylan does from has all this stuff. It's
Well, that's just a completely absurd other side of the story in the Knives of No Inheritance structure. So.
Yeah, like Craig just gets like a check from like his dad's like estate and stuff. Like I think Craig gets a check from the selling of the home, actually.
Yeah, I would imagine at some point that must have taken place, or hell, maybe Albert was just renting the place and that's it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. All right.
At the funeral, the priest is saying the prayers. Albert's coworker Stephen says a eulogy about how Albert was a devoted coworker and a devoted father. Craig starts acting out. It's like he says, please, and then Craig starts laughing about Stephen's words about Albert being a great father, and Joey takes him outside. Craig tells Joey that he is happy his dad is dead and can't hurt him anymore. So we're seeing Craig starting to crack here, but again, it's real honesty of Craig that no, my dad is not a devoted father. He beat me, but again, we don't hear it from Craig. It would have been even crazier if Craig started booing the words of Stephen and this eulogy.
Yeah, I think Craig's response is played really well here. That it is kind of just like that discomfort with the emotion and not being able to control like that response. He would like to be able to to shed some tears for his father at this point, but when confronted with people saying these things that are the opposite of what he experienced in their relationship, it's confusing, it's troubling, and they do the right thing in kind of ushering him out of the space to give him that time and space to gather himself a bit here. I talked about Radich's kind of hands-off stuff. I'm not sure why he's here at the funeral.
That is a little bit, yeah.
But maybe he is trying to be involved.
I think he's trying to be involved, but also he's a close friend of. Not a close friend, but it's he's close with Joey here, and I guess he's just there for Joey Jeremiah, and being like, oh well, you're going through a tough time, if there's anything it can do, So I guess Mr. Raj was always trying to be around and help out with Joey and or Mr. Simpson if they had problems.
Right.
It is odd that he's sitting right behind them. Just, I don't know. Discretion would suggest maybe hang out in the back. Just anyway. Yeah, it's one of those deals where when you don't know exactly what you're feeling, it can come out in some pretty unpredictable ways. We see this outburst from Craig. Let's call it some emotional incontinence, where he's just laughing inappropriately at this funeral. Has to be taken outside like a baby crying in a movie theater, right? Take him outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't know. This maybe reads a little bit differently, given just in retrospect, what we will learn about Craig and his mental health in a clinical sense.
Oh yeah,
some seasons down the line,
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if they already have that in mind. I don't know exactly when it was decided that this thing would be a part of his character. If it was planned from the beginning, that's some awfully long-term planning for this character. But yeah, maybe it was already baked into his development.
I thought it was
trying to avoid spoilers.
No, but I thought it was from the beginning. I thought they were showing signs already, but I was no, this is how someone who's getting abused would act out. It's no, that's not true. He's lying. Blah blah blah. It's oh well, you're trying not to come to terms with your own like you need help, but you're not like coming to terms with it. So, yeah, I thought they were trying to foreshadow what was going to happen to Craig in the long run with the beginning episode, but they did not. So back at school, hopefully this is like the last day and they're just cleaning out their lockers, I want to say. Ashley says it was disturbing how Craig was laughing at the funeral. Ellie then says funerals are stressful and everyone gets different emotions and everything. Craig then appears and he tells Ashley that they are on the ballot for the king and queen of the luau. Spinner goes into a tanning salon and he chickens out saying he gets claustrophobic, and then Paige gives him tanning spray, and then she goes into the tanning bed. As Craig is going to the dance, Joey wants to go over what Craig will say to Children's Aid, but Craig does not want to talk about it, and he just wants to go to the dance. Joey says Craig's pain will catch up to him.
This is like the first real good advice and moment for Joey, I think, in this whole stretch of episodes, because he's tying back to his own loss. You know, he lost his wife and said he would try to put it off and you know, and feel like more positive vibrations, more positive feelings, yet that you can't run and hide from it. And he's identifying that, you know, it's nice that Craig wants to go to the dance, but make sure he's doing it for, you know, essentially the right reasons, instead of just as a way of not letting himself feel that grief and be with this moment.
Yeah, it's a nice scene for Joey, and it makes sense because he can speak from a place of experience. So that was kind of a long time coming and handled pretty well. Our B storyline with Paige and Spinner is sort of, I don't know. I thought this was going to go in a different direction with like Spinner like getting roasted in the tanning bed or something. And God only knows with Paige. Like maybe Paige is the one who has the ridiculous bronzer or whatever. But that was not really the way I expected things to pan out with them. But still, kind of good, you know, just comedic relief here in this otherwise pretty heavy episode.
Yeah, I appreciated the physical comedy of Spinner's freak out in the tanning bed. That's not something we see from him as an actor ever in this show. So that came off really well. I like that a lot.
Yeah, again, Joey's right. Is that like, you know, the pain will catch up to Craig, and it's like it's okay to be sad, but again, you know, Craig's like, no, I'm fine. So Joey just has to let it be and let Craig figure out his own pain and grief here. The dance is rocking as we're kicking off this luau. We see JT and Liberty dance. We see Paige and Spinner. We see Sean and Emma doing the limbo. So everyone's having a good time. But here is where like this is like where it's a little bit weird. It's like, what time is it? Because Toby is taking everyone's ballots, and like, you know, Jimmy's like, hey, vote for me and Hazel. And then 5 minutes into the dance, Mr. Simpson goes, guys, it's time to announce the winner. Like, what?
The guy,
yeah,
like,
we are sort of bending the space time
here. Yeah.
We're playing a little fast and loose, I'll admit it. And I do have a question. I might have to retract an earlier statement. It does appear that Toby is at this dance with Kendra. Is that correct? Are they?
They're just here to sell tickets.
They are together. He even got to file off an "I love you" and quickly retract it earlier when they were discussing the votes. He said, "Oh, that's why I love you." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I really like you." So he's still fumbling his way through having a girlfriend.
All right. Well, not as much of a loser as I made him out to be earlier. Then
no, but yeah. But again, Kendra and Toby and Kendra are not long for this world as some of the other
Kendra's not long for this world.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kendra herself is not long for this world.
She fell into
spoiler,
the black
she
hole.
will
Like Scott
not. Yeah,
did.
she will not die in a car accident. She just she
The
goes
black
upstairs,
hole.
right?
Yeah. They call it the black hole Degrassi characters. Where other sitcoms say she went up into the attic, Degrassi says, well, she fell into the black hole of disappearance.
Sure.
Yeah, like legit. So again, like Mr. Simpson announces that Craig and Ashley have one king and queen. So Craig is celebrating with Ashley. Craig then looks out into the crowd and he thinks he sees his dad clapping for him, but it's just another teacher. Ashley then tries to talk to Craig, but Craig then lashes out and starts going to rip a poster, and he just runs off and starts crying. Then Mr. Radich goes, just let him cool down. Everyone back to the dance. It'll be okay.
If there's a shot that's etched in my memory from early watchings of this show, it's Craig ripping the posters, slapping the wall, just like in this fit of flailing of arms and limbs, like making his way out with no real direction in mind. For some reason, that action is so seared in my memory from this episode, and I found myself watching it this time, just waiting. I was like, "Come on, he's got to hit the posters." And then Radish steps in and says, "No, let's see how it plays out."
Yeah, and again, Craig just goes off the rails here and just like rips the poster. Like you, John, I was like, oh, here comes the big scene. And, Mr. Radish's like, oh, just let him cool down. Everyone back in. But then Terry runs off to find Craig, and Craig starts to cry. Terry tells Craig about how she felt when her mom died and that she didn't care that her mom died. She cared more about that she couldn't play pin the tail on the donkey at her friend's birthday party because her dad came and got her and said, oh, well, I have some bad news. Your mom passed away. So I'm guessing, here's what I'm thinking. Like, Terry's mom was in the hospital, and Terry's dad was like, all right, you got to go to this party. Like, you can't be, being sad and everything. And, I don't even think Terry knew what was going on. And then at the hospital, Terry's mom died, and then she gets taken out from the party here. That's my scenario of it.
Yeah, I think it's just pointing to, I think Terry's story is great because it's kind of pointing to some of the selfishness that we can feel even when that arises when we're feeling sad or when we're feeling this level of frustration. We're frustrated for the wrong reasons, or we're thinking about our own selfish loss as opposed to the other people involved, and that's what she's kind of pointing towards for Craig. And Craig is even saying, hey, this was supposed to be I didn't want him in my life anymore, and now he's gone, and I don't know why I feel bad about that, or I feel that's hard. So she's pointing out that confusion here, and I think that really is a nice moment for her. And this is really this is kind of a trend that I think that Degrassi writers lean into, of when a character is in crisis, we bring in not their best friend, not like a character they usually engage with, but somebody else from that friend group who you might not think of. And we get that first kind of over the shoulder shot from behind of Terry, and it's like, oh, who is this coming? And it's Terry of all people to talk with Craig, similar to it's JT of all people who is helping in Paige with her sexual assault, or it's Toby of all people helping Emma in these moments. You get, they seem to really, really love using this opportunity to introduce a different character interaction that might not necessarily be there all the time.
It's Sean making out with Ashley after she takes.
It's Andrea. It's Steve comforting Andrea when she's frustrated.
Steve comforting Andrea, yes.
Yeah.
I think the whole Sean Ashley thing would have been better if it was Spinner making out with Ashley.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
It's David comforting Dylan after his dad blows up. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that is something that I guess is a little bit of a trope that this show leans on, is you find comfort from less likely sources. And yeah, the point is well taken that in these situations, when you expect this big terrible thing to consume all of your focus and it's not, you can feel a little bit guilty about that. Or if you're maybe being pressured to act a certain way, maintain a sense of normalcy, and that can be difficult to do. Yeah, that's when you're going to get these blow-ups like we saw with Craig, which I don't know. I feel like they wanted this whole set piece with the luau for this season finale to be kind of a bigger deal than it ends up being. It sounds like it was pretty memorable in your mind, John. But just the whole, like, compared to just other Degrassi dances or special events or whatever, this one has always sort of fallen short for me. And I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, because it's not like we spend a whole lot of time there.
They're still early on in their development, Tim. They only have the budget for, some lays and some painted palm trees in a plastic pool. We're not at a time where we can have a full casino night, or we can have a 1920s blowout like 90210 would have for their senior year. They don't have that. In early 90210, they were still having the Shaw dance where why isn't everybody dancing? It was just a banner and an empty gym, really.
Yeah. And look, they don't have that Kevin Smith money yet, right?
Yeah.
No, they do not. The rest of the guys and girls, Paige and Spinner, Jimmy and Hazel, they feel bad about Craig having a breakdown, like being upset about everything. But they start to laugh about their outfits and the Spinner and Paige's tanning experience. And even Ellie goes, "Oh, losers," and she takes a picture. But they're like really laughing it off, like, even in times of sadness, these four are like, just laughing at themselves, like, what did we do? And the outfits and the tans, like, it's nice that they can smile and be like, cheerful during like sad times as life moves on. They can laugh about this down the line. And then Ashley and Craig, they have their dance as we end the episode here. I actually thought they ended this episode with Craig and Joey going to Children's Aid, like with him opening up the door and then the credits. That's how I actually thought the episode ended back in the day. I didn't know it ended with Craig and Ashley dancing. I actually thought it ended with Craig and Joey going to Children's Aid.
No, Bernie, come on. The dramatic license or dramatic rules are in like something like this, you end with a wedding, you end with a dance or a party, like a dinner. That's what we do. We're not in that state yet. This is a great place to end, and it parallels even our mid-season finale, which ended with Sean and Emma on the dance floor. Now we have Craig and Ashley, in that moment of embrace on the dance floor here.
Yeah, it's kind of good that at least we're not having back-to-back seasons ending with like sadness, even though it was sad for Craig. It's not like he's having like his full sad breakdown like Ashley did at the end of season 1. He kind of just feels comfortable in Ashley's arms.
We end the season with no one being a hag, and that is great. Unless you count Mr. Manning. Dr. Manning is somewhat of a hag, I guess.
He is somewhat of a hag, yes.
Tim, what did you think of the ending here?
Pretty good stuff. It leans on the strong acting we've seen from Jake Epstein. I almost forgot his name that time. So it's again the show realizing they've got a little bit of a diamond in the rough with this kid, and he's pretty much nailing the stuff that's being asked of him. So yeah, and I'm glad that although Craig didn't really get the kind of closure he wanted, at least we are done with the question of who exactly does this kid live with? What is his situation? He lives with Joey, who's kind of his stepdad, but only because his actual father is abusive and his mom is dead. Like it's all a little bit confusing, but at least one element of that equation is now gone. So it gets a little more straightforward from here. It's Craig and Joey, and Craig with his little sister Angie, and Kendra going upstairs. So.
I think the real question is which group is Craig's friends now?
Yeah, really. It seems pretty firmly that he's, like I said, we saw Sean in part one. Seemed to still have kind of a friendship with Craig, but here it's been all the upperclassmen.
Yeah.
So, maybe we're moving on. But
you touched on something, Tim, about just the performances of Jake Epstein that we got to see in this finale, and then paired with the opener, the opening two-parter. I wonder if the creators of the show, if the writers really started to see what they had here, and because he kind of disappears in the middle of this season at times, there's not a lot for him to do when we're going around Emma-centric or Paige-centric stories. So, you get the feeling that, hey, maybe this is going to be a major part of our focus moving forward.
Yeah, and maybe if he hadn't have turned in the performance that he did here, they don't lean on him quite as heavily going forward. Because I'll just say, like, seasons 3 and 4, I think of as being very Craig heavy.
Yeah.
Moving him, sort of pivoting from the family drama into some pretty severe relationship drama.
Yeah, I can.
Romantic entanglements is what I mean.
Yes, always.
You're not talking about choosing photography over guitar.
I am not, sir.
Yeah.
Although there is some Battle of the Dance stuff in there.
Yeah.
It always be like the seasons I was are always I always start with an Emma base episode, or at least Emma is in the episode one way or another, really.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from her as the lead of the show as far as the kids are concerned. So
yeah,
you are gonna get kind of go back to basics for your season premieres, for the most part. But I just think a lot of the meat of the show and the couples and the shipping wars that fans get into, Craig is at the center of a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean him and Ashley really are, and until we get to the whole Jimmy saga with with Rick and everything,
Yeah, well,
that's a whole different turmoil. Yeah. MVP, hands down, it's Craig.
Definitely got to go with Toby. No, it is Craig. Yes.
Yeah, for both episodes, I would say doing a lot of heavy lifting in his acting and also just in carrying those storylines. Those are there are moments in this second episode that are based on the other character's response to him. So it is his world here.
LVP. It's got to be Albert, right?
Least valuable. I mean, if you're judging off value they brought to the episode, I mean, he drives the story. So I don't know. If you're just saying using LVP as somebody you dislike, then yeah.
All right. Well, I guess LVP. I would say it's Toby. He doesn't add anything to the episode.
How dare you? What about? I mean, look, Radich is right there, and
Oh yes.
maybe you can only count it for part 2, but let's be honest, he's sort of the easy answer for me.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Radich's lax security policies allow a non-parent or immediate guardian to be lurking in the parking lots as well in the first episode.
Well, yeah, and I feel like that might be an issue later down the line also. Given some terrible things that happened under his watch.
Yes. Well, John, this is more of a question for you, but Tim, you can chirp in here. John, MVP of season 2, who is it?
Wow, I hadn't thought about that for season 2.
Yeah.
You know, for as much as we've leaned on Craig for these 2 episodes, and really praised everything that went around him in the beginning as well, I think his kind of absence from the middle hurts. So I would go with Paige. I think Paige had an overarching storyline that showed her struggling with personal trauma with the sexual assault. We see that character growth that we just noted here from the beginning of the season, where she is really picking on JT and not wanting anything to do with these 7th graders or thinking of doing anything generous for anybody else, to where she is here. I think she had a number of standout moments throughout the season. I would go with Paige.
I would agree with you, and like a second for me would have to definitely be I would say Sean. Sean would actually be like a close second to me, because like he definitely has his episodes of him being like, oh yeah, I'm Sean. I got to repeat, I'm with the 8th graders now, and again we see like where he lives and like him getting like sort of drunk and trying to redeem himself with Emma during the wedding and everything. So like we had a couple of like good Sean episodes as well, with him trying to get back with Emma as well. LVP of season 2. It's Hazel. There's no doubt it's Hazel.
Sure.
Poor Hazel. What'd she do to you?
Oh God, that one. I think like it's just her. Like she has no dialogue, and like it's really like they give her absolutely nothing. You give her one episode, and it goes nowhere. So she's just Paige's lackey, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where it's like Ashley, I think, really was more engaging with Paige when she like reveals that she was sexually assaulted. Hazel's like, okay, we can go get help, but that's it.
Yeah, it is a shame, but hard to argue against. And in my gut, I was thinking probably Paige for MVP as well. So I'm definitely growing in confidence to hear, John, you say to back that up. Felt like a strong Paige season. So having not really watched along this entire season with you guys, I'm glad that my instinct sort of holds up, it sounds like.
Yeah, so we'll see where our characters go here, as we still have some of these storylines still going here, as we have no clear ending to the Paige and Dean saga, and Mr. Simpson and Emma are stuck together for the long run, as Mr. Simpson plays stepfather here as well, and Craig and Ashley's relationship will commence too down the line as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's going to do it from us here tonight, covering Tears Are Not Enough Parts 1 and 2. But before we go, Tim, do you have anything that you want to direct the listeners to?
Well, as mentioned, I co-host a podcast in a similar vein as this, which is called 9021 No So. It's a Beverly Hills 90210 retrospective that I do with JT Rosero and a guest joining us each episode. Both of you gentlemen have been with us and will be back in the future, certainly. But just going episode by episode through the great OG 90s teen primetime drama. It's a lot of adjectives to describe the show, but it's a show that has a lot to offer with its jam-packed 30-plus episode seasons. We are now in the probably first third, I would still say, of season 4. So that is first year of the college years. Shannon Doherty is still with us. So that is her last season on the show, and in some people's minds, kind of a jumping off point. But we're going to stick with it for as long as we can stand it. And we're enjoying that ride still very much, JT and myself. So check that out if you're a fan of that classic series. It is, again, 9021 No So.
Yeah, me and John, we always like listening to it, and like you said, we've been guests on the pod, and we're along for the ride as we get through their first year at California U. So yeah, right. Yeah. Well, from Tim Capel, well, we want to say thank you to Tim Capel for being here tonight, and thank you for closing out the season 2 with us, Tim.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. It was a blast.
Yep. Well, that's going to do it from us here tonight on Pop Goes Degrassi. He's John Kesalika, along with Tim Capel. I'm James Gruenberg, and we will see you next time.